بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing our lessons on the practical guide to seeking Islamic knowledge. Last week we spoke about something to do with the curriculum of studying Tawheed, about the importance of having a schedule. We also spoke about a tadarruj, gradual progression, knowledge, going step by step, level by level. And so we want to continue to build from there, inshallah ta'ala. I want to talk about now in the curriculum of the matters of aqeedah. Okay, so we talked about what should we study when it comes to Tawheed. And now we'll talk about aqeedah. And we're talking beginner level things, right? So we're not talking about very advanced, although there's also a curriculum for that. So for a beginner in aqeedah, someone will begin with something very basic, very easy, that gives them a summary of the aqeedah, mukhtasar wal mujmal, yani a summary of the whole aqeedah, or one of the most important chapters of aqeedah. So an example will be Qasidatul Lamiyya of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. The Lamiyya poem by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. That's a very easy place to start. Because it's very short, literally 16 lines, a page or two in Arabic. And it also covers a good amount of the fundamental topics of aqeedah. Not all the chapters, but the fundamentals. So it's a nice place to start. Easy, more comprehensive. It gives you a good starting, covers the major issues, not all of them, but also it's easy to memorize and learn. Easy to learn. Especially if somebody is trying to memorize it. But it's because it also gives you a good overview. After that, someone can progress to the next, which is usually the ulama advised, the qasid or the manzoom al-ha'iyya. Al-ha'iyya of Imam Ibn Abi Dawood as-Sijistani, rahimahullah. So Abu Dawood's son, Ibn Abi Dawood. So the Lamiyya is a poem that ends with lam, every bait, every verse. Wal-ha'iyya, every verse ends with ha. Right? So it's the qasaid, the manzumat that we know, the poems. So this is another place, as scholars say, what's the difference between the two poems besides their meter? Is the advancement. Ha'iyya has more masail, more issues it covers than Lamiyya. Lamiyya is more summarized, but Ha'iyya a little bit more broad. It covers a little bit more. For example, talks about some of the issues to do with those who spoke about Allah's speech, not just the issue, but then the different groups, maybe, for example. So Shaykh Islam talks about what we believe about the Quran, but Ha'iyya talks about maybe this group and that group say otherwise. So you see, now you're progressing. And other things like that. So it's 34 lines, roughly. So almost double the size. And the reason why it's easy to go like this, some of the issues you cover in Lamiyya are already there in Ha'iyya, so you know them. So it's like a review. But it's not review only because you add more. And each one of them has explanations, right? Brothers and sisters, you can just find, each one you find the explanation. So as you go through them, you'll find the poem, the explanation, you listen to or you read it, the next one, and that way you can get the understanding. Because if you just read the text by itself, you're not going to derive what the scholars derive. After that, a person can move on to something like Sufficiency in Creed. Lum'atul I'tiqad of Imam Ibn Qudama al-Hanbali. However, it's important to note that the book, despite being a good summary of the Aqeedah al-Sunnah al-Jama'ah, there are some mistakes. So Lum'atul I'tiqad is translated as Sufficiency in Creed or Radiance in Faith. One of the two they translated as. We've studied it before, but the book, as good as it is, there are some few errors, you could say, Imam Ibn Qudama fell into. So that would be important to pay attention to. And that shows you a difference when you go up in your knowledge. You can read certain books that have certain errors, no problem, because the shaykh or the commentary will explain, okay, this was a mistake, but this is what he should have said instead. Lum'atul I'tiqad covers almost the whole aqeedah, right? You can say in general. So it goes from belief in Allah all the way to things like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the Umara, the rulers. And then after that, a person can move to Al-Aqidah Wasatiyah. And we know that's the book where you could say it's the main one. Of all of them, this is the main one, Aqidah. Because if you finish Wasatiyah, then everything above it, you're getting into intermediate or advanced. Wasatiyah is the basic. It covers the Aqidah al-Sunnah Jama'ah, Mujmalan, Quran was Sunnah, Ayah, Hadith, that's it. And some ulama have put chapter titles, right? And then you read the commentary, mashallah, you cover the whole Aqidah. For the most part, Ibn Shaykh al-Islam puts everything in there. Some issues here and there, he didn't obviously go in detail, but he mentions everything you need to know. The benefit of Wasatiyah is its comprehensiveness and its strength in the Quran and Sunnah. Everything is Ayah, Hadith. And you can see the explanations are full of more Ayah and Hadith. So Wasatiyah is like a milestone then, brothers, between someone who's the beginner and someone who's not. When you finish Wasatiyah, you can say you're moving into intermediate. You pass the beginner because you know, not just summarized, you know in some greater detail the basics. That's the value then of having that kind of book at the end. For each one of these books, there are commentaries, but you could say the best of them for the Wasatiyah, we'll say for the beginner and for the person who wants comprehensiveness, and the Sharh Ibn Uthaymeen. And no student knowledge can do without it. Right? It's a beautiful book. Right? So Sharh Ibn Uthaymeen, it's in English in 2 volumes. I think we might have it here. And in Arabic, it's also there. So it's important for somebody to know that book is very important. And the Sharh of Ibn Uthaymeen versus other shuruh, there are other shuruh which are, you could say, are more comprehensive or more detailed. The scholars prefer his Sharh for the easiness of its wordings, but the broad scope. He brings a lot of things in the commentary. Shaykh Uthaymeen's style, that's how it was unique about his style. He doesn't just mention 1 or 2 things, he mentions a lot of things. So someone reading these kinds of explanations and these books, if he goes through in this level, memorizing what he's able to. For example, Lamiyya, it's easy to memorize. Ha'iyya, you could easily memorize. The audio is available. And the others, you can memorize it, like the Wasatiyya, or you can understand it. Right? Memorizing is preferable, but if someone can't, at least he understands it. Once someone finishes that level, you could say now they're moving to intermediate level. Everything above that is going to be more complicated or more detailed. But there's one more book I want to add to the list. That would be an intermediate between going here to here. This is because where are you going after this? After this, you're going to go towards some more advanced books. But there's a book we need to know about Allah's names and attributes. So see, brothers and sisters, when we look at this subject, what we're learning here, all this is to do with the Arkanul Iman. We said Aqidah is Arkanul Iman, the 6 pillars of Iman. That's what you study Aqidah. And then a few extra chapters. So if you finish Wasatiyah, you cover the 6 pillars of Iman and additional chapters of Aqidah in general. But then where do most of the scholars spend their time then? Spending, debating and discussing. It has to do with the differences between Ahlul Sunnah and Ahlul Bid'ah. In what chapter? The names and attributes of Allah. And we talked about Tawheed last week. But in the Bab al-Aqidah, where is it, you could say, the most common debate? Although there are other debates, right? But the common one, fi asma'illahi wa sifati. That's where you could say the fault ground, the battleground is there. And when you finish Wasatiyah, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah is giving you, in many ways, the keys to establish the correct Aqidah, because what comes after, he's going to show you how to get their Aqidah, to respond to their Aqidah. So if you don't understand that, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's work is a project. He has from beginning to end. I mean, that's one of his specialities. He finished the conversation with Sifat in the greatest level of detail, right? He's probably the most important, right? A scholar, the latter scholars who ever wrote in that subject. So when you finish Wasatiyah, what you should know is the Aqidah, but what you really want to know well, especially if you're going to go and give da'wah to others, is what's the difference between Ahlul Sunnah and Ahlul Bid'ah and people of innovation regarding Aqidah, especially Asma wa Sifat. بين أشاعر والماتريدية وكذا وكذا, right? These groups, Mu'tazila, Jahmiyyah, all the groups you learn, they have issues, they have problems every chapter of Aqidah, brothers. Every chapter. But the one that most of us know is the attributes. So why is that important? Because if you would talk to somebody else, you will notice that some people talk about details about names and attributes of Allah that Wasatiyah doesn't cover. Wasatiyah tells you how we believe in all these names and attributes. Very easy. But then the conversation comes, okay, what about this attribute and this discussion and what that, and what is ta'weed and tafweed, and all these words you hear. How do you get from where you are to there? Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah has more books, but a middle ground would be the Kitab Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, Al-Qawa'id al-Muthla, Sifat Allah al-Ulya. Right? This is Ula. This book is very, very, very important. Ulama, they explain it, they summarize it, they work on it. And brothers, we have to study that book and spend time with it because it's very, very valuable. Kitab al-Qawaid al-Muthla, in English, the exemplary principles in the names and attributes of Allah. I believe we have it in our library here in English. Excellent, excellent work. Why is this kitab Ibn Uthaymeen wrote? It's original work. And the scholars, they give him the introduction for it. Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, is summarizing there the Aqeedah al-Sunnah Jama'ah about these issues. It brings the foundational principles from the works of people before, the Salaf and the great Imams, and it makes it easy. It brings examples, and it teaches you the rules. Principle 1, 2, 3, approximately 10 major principles. Then the end of the book, Shubuhat. And the response to it, how to respond. It's a very nice book, it's easy to read, but also very beneficial, and he explained it himself. That makes it even better. And some ulama summarized it even, made it even more shorter. So why do you want to read a book like that? Because in there you learn the terminologies and the principles you need to go north, to go above wasatiyah. You can't go above wasatiyah if you don't know these terminologies because you're going to get stuck. Once you get to the next level, you're going to say, what's going on? Ibn Taymiyyah starts mentioning new words you didn't hear before. He's explaining them in different ways, or he's using terminologies which are much more accurate, they're more subtle, and you're getting confused. Most of the confusion comes here. There's no beginning step. Right? You want to climb the ladder, gotta go on the first rung. So very important book. It's in English. You could just read it, or you could read the commentary and study it. It's very useful. After that, you could say everything above that is going to be more intermediate and advanced. So the brothers and sisters will become more specialized in Aqeedah. Sufficiency, obviously, with them would be for a person who does not have time, or is not even just a beginner. If he did, for example, Wasatiyah, he read it and understood the general idea of it, or even if he did a Lum'at al-I'tiqad and Sunnah generally, he should have the Aqeedah al-Sunnah Jama'ah. Wasatiyah is a book where Ibn Taymiyyah wrote for the students to spread to the people in Wasat. So if you read Wasatiyah to al-Awam even, but they didn't know anything, just they read it, they get the general Aqeedah. Allah says, we believe Allah has attributes, He has a hand. Allah says, we believe the Sahaba are honorable. Allah says, Qala Rasulullah. It's very simple. So if someone just read that and believed that, that's correct Aqeedah. But obviously what we want is for the student to say, okay, at least I know the basics. I know A to Z of what I'm supposed to know. The details, that's for later. So the problem though is that if you put the details first, you're going to get lost. You're going to get lost between the trees for the forest, right? Most people, that's what happens. Maybe he's focusing too much on the names and attributes of Allah and he forgot all the abwab of Aqeedah, he doesn't know them. Like for example, he should know what does Aqeedah count? It starts here, ends there. So the overview is missing. And that's why sometimes you notice some people, their understanding of Aqeedah is very good in some chapters, and some chapters he has no idea. And that's not correct. No, you can't be a basic Muslim, say, Qadr, I don't know very well. But Qadr, you have to know some 6 pillars of Iman. So you don't want to know the details of one of them, and you don't know the general of one of them. Very good book to help us to understand that. If someone wants to say, how do I know which ones are summarized and detailed? Again, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen. Again, see, these scholars, they're useful because they do a lot of heavy lifting for us. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen has a book called Sharh al-Iman. It's in English. It's called The Explanation of Faith, translated by Dr. Salih al-Salih. That book, in my personal estimation, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, is probably one of the easiest and best books someone could read if they're not going to read anything else. The whole Aqeedah made easy. A very good book. Explanation of Iman. Even a non-Muslim can read that book. Because he takes the pillar, he tells you, from this pillar you need to know 3 things, 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you know that, you're good. And he explains a little bit more, move. Each pillar he explains. So for example, Iman in Allah, 4 things. Iman in Malaika, 4 things. Iman in Kutub, 4 things. The Qiyamah, 3 things. That's what you need. Beautiful. Allahu Akbar. Then he explains the fawaid at the end, the benefits of Aqeedah. Why you have to believe in Allah angels. Benefit 1, 2, 3, 4. But this is what many of us would like. I like that book for its simplicity. It's called Explanation of Iman. Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen and his student Salih explained it, translated it. So if you type Explanation of Iman, very good book, brothers, very good. The reason why I think that book is useful is because it covers a bird's eye view of the Iman. Most of us, I think that's what we're looking for in the beginning, right? And just for our own benefit, we'll mention quickly what the Iman looks like in general. But once you understand that, this is valuable for a student to know, okay, I understand all the abwab Aqeedah, all the chapters of Aqeedah, I know them generally. And then when I know them generally, the evidences, the understanding, Ahl Sunnah, the correct understanding, then I'm going advanced, intermediate. Intermediate, what am I doing? I'm going to work on some other books, which are going to take some of those chapters and they're going to go in depth. For example, there are books that go in depth about the Malaika. But the problem between the Muslims or difference, it doesn't come really in there. Although there are differences, it's not really there. The big difference is about Allah and His attributes and names. So the student has to know that when we're finishing, you want objectives. And that's another benefit. Studying, when you study, you have to have an objective in mind. What are you looking for? Learning objectives have to be before you study. So the reason I was saying this, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, why did he write Wasatiyah? Because someone asked him to bring him the whole Aqidah. What happened after he wrote Wasatiyah, brothers? He went to court. Alright, this is important. Ibn Taymiyyah, he went to court. And when he went to court for his Aqidah, as a Hasha'ira, they came together and they took him to court in Egypt. They said, we need to take him to trial. He's a deviant. Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, I'm not going to represent myself. I'm going to let my writing do the talking. Bring me Wasatiyah. Wasatiyah is my representative. And he put it down and they debated that. Brothers, he destroyed them in the debate. And he didn't even prepare. Oh, come on, Shaykh Islam, guys, he's not someone with ayah min ayatillah. Wallahi, when you read that debate, even Ash'ari, they were lost. Some of them got fired from their position after the debate because they were so incompetent. And the reason I'm mentioning this, munadhara, is very important. The ulama talk about this. After Wasatiyah, where do we go? Intermediate, right? What is intermediate? Number one, munadhara al-Wasatiyah, the debate on Wasatiyah. People skip this. Munadhara Wasatiyah, the debate of Ibn Taymiyyah and Wasatiyah is before Hamawiyah. And you see many ulama explain it. It's a miftah. It's the key to understanding what Wasatiyah is about. Why? Because Ibn Taymiyyah, they pull them up on 10 issues. They say, these are the issues. He said, all right, let's go for one by one. And the ending, you see, he explains the biggest one, which is how do you understand Allah's attributes and names. Some of the stuff they debated is like, this hadith is authentic or not. Ibn Taymiyyah proves it's authentic. Or they say, why do you say this word? Why do you use that word? But the real one was about Allah's attributes. How do you understand them? So Ibn Taymiyyah's munadhara, it's even in English. One of the professors, Muslim professors, he translated it. And some of the ulama, they explain it. Like Shaykh Abdul al-Badr, Shaykh Fahad Fuhayd, and many of the ulama, they explain the munadhara. Very, very, very useful book. It's a short research. Ibn Taymiyyah is the only one who actually has a detailed description of it. The reason why I mentioned that, many of us, we know about Hamawiyah and Tadmuriyah, the other ones. But before you even go there, that munadhara, that debate, and I really think it's useful because it said, if you read Ibn Uthaymeen's exemplary principles of Allah's attributes, then you read Wasatiyah's, the munadhara, you're going to enjoy it. Because you understand what's going on. You understand. And you actually appreciate. Now some of the ulama, they say after that intermediate level, and after that the advanced. What is advanced? So someone will say, where are you going from here? We said munadhara, Wasatiyah, then Hamawiyah, in this exact order. Right? Because ulama just say this is the order. Some of the scholars said, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, his books, you have to read them in order. You can't read them however you want. In no way. Ibn Taymiyyah is an advanced scholar. You have to read in order. Because his books are in levels. So it's Wasatiyah, then the debate on Wasatiyah, then Al-Hamawiyah. Again, all the names are places, right? Hamawiyah. And then At-Tadmuriyah. Tadmuriyah is like, if you got there, you're in advanced. Inshallah, you reach advanced level. Because everything north of Tadmuriyah, you're on your own, inshallah. Bismillah. You can read the other books, you can choose from there. Because although there are some more tartib. Tadmuriyah is a hard book. I think Shaykh al-Fajr, he explained it. The Mukhtasar, Ibn Uthaymeen summary of it. But what's the difference between these books? Okay, Wasatiyah, general Aqidah, right? Munadhara, the debate, he talks about some of the places where Ahl Bid'ah, they didn't agree with him, and he explained how the Aqidah is correct and how to explain it. So it's kind of like Ibn Taymiyyah giving us an insight, and when you read the book, you see where the focus is, that's what you want to take, the objective. They didn't catch him on some of the Qiyamah stuff. They didn't, they agreed. It's when it talks about Allah's names and attributes, where they say, why do you say this word? Why do you use that word? How about this? And Ibn Taymiyyah debated them. That shows you this is the ground, this is the fault line, this is what we're debating. Brothers and sisters, very important, because Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah's project was always to explain these issues to the masses and to deal with all the doubts. When he was in jail, outside of jail, he was always worrying about these issues. I mean, when he wrote Wasatiyah, then he went to court, right? Then came the Hamawiyah. Guess what? He also got in trouble for that too. They responded to him. Then he got the response in jail. I mean, they put him in jail, right? SubhanAllah. And when he was in jail, he heard about someone responding to his Hamawiyah, so he responded back. Some maybe have, some it's lost. And then Ibn Taymiyyah got a big idea. So let me just finish this debate. And he wrote like a, mashallah, huge book. Bayan Talbis al-Jahmiyyah. That's it. There's nothing after that, actually, Khan. That's it. The Ash'ari, they're not really alive after that one. He finished them. But why did he got the idea? Because when he responded, he said, let me just explain everything. So the levels are very important because it came in order, right? One came, then another one came. So what's important? They responded, he responded back. So Hamawiyya is like Wasatiyya, but a little bit more because it focuses mainly on Allah's names and attributes, almost exclusively. A good introduction, then a deeper discussion. So Hamawiyya is very important. It's the key to what's coming next. And the last one is called At-Tadmuriyya, and that's a place, Palmyra is called in Damascus. That's Tadmur. They also asked him to write, so he wrote At-Tadmuriyya. That's an advanced book. And At-Tadmuriyya is unique because in that book, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah writes using the terminology of Ahlul Kalam. Before that, he doesn't use the terminology. Here, he starts using the terminology. He doesn't explain it. You should know it. Almost like if you're here now, if you're reading this, you should know because he's trying to explain and he's showing it's a fantastic work. The ulama found that it's very difficult though to read it comparatively. So many of the ulama have done explanations, summaries, commentaries, and all kinds of work on it. But Tadmuriyya, brothers, after that, that's advanced. That's advanced level. Everything Tadmuriyya and above is advanced. Somebody's going in advanced level. If you actually finish Tadmuriyya, anything above Tadmuriyya, you could say it's advanced. And what's above Tadmuriyya? Well, we didn't mention it in this list, but some of you are probably thinking, after Wasatiyya, how about Tahawiyya? We didn't talk about Tahawiyya. And there's a reason why I didn't put it there. Because some of our ulama, they say Tahawiyya is a commentary to, especially the explanation of it, to Tadmuriyya. Hamawiyya is the Tahawiyya, Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, his Aqidah, we all heard about it before, Aqidah Tahawiyya. Every sect agrees to that book. And there's an explanation as to why they all agree to it. But the Tahawiyya in general is a very good book. It's the most comprehensive Aqidah. Again, there's some mistakes, that Imam Tahawi rahimahullah made. But generally, it's a good Aqidah book. Excellent, right? So it covers all the Aqidah. Then its commentary is even more detailed. Its Sharh, its explanation, which is Sharh Ibn Abi Izz al-Hanafi. The reason why the ulama, they mention this at the end, if you're reading Tahawiyya, you're covering the whole Aqidah again. But in deep depth, Sharh Tahawiyya is not something small. It's a serious book. Because in that book, he talks about every bab of Aqidah, and he uses the mustalahat, the language of Ahlul Kalam, refutes them, and he doesn't explain anything. Summarize. Why? Because Ibn Izz is writing at an advanced level. So if someone read Tahawiyya, then he read that commentary, if he didn't read Tadmuriyya, it makes no sense. So some of the ulama, like Ibn Uthaymin, say, if you read Tadmuriyya, the explanation of the contents of that book are in Sharh Tahawiyya. See how the ulama are layering all this? It's so interesting. Why? Because it makes sense. Because in the book, Sharh Tahawi Ibn Abi Izz al-Hanafi, if you read it, you will notice he quotes Ibn Taymiyyah a lot, but he never mentions his name. Because he lives in a time period you can't mention Ibn Taymiyyah's name. You guys know, after Ibn Taymiyyah died, Ibn Qayyim was alive, Ibn Qayyim, Ibn Abi Izz, all of them got abused and persecuted by the government. They became Taymiyyun. That's what they call them, Taymiyyun, these Taymites. Or whatever you want to call it. This was a name they were using. And it became really bad. But the books continued, but the situation got rough. So he doesn't mention his name. But everything he's citing is Ibn Taymiyyah. This is uniquely important. Why? Because look at that. Look at the difference between you reading things in order and you skip one over the other. For example, if you read Tahawiyya without any explanation, it's easy. But when you read the commentaries, you want to read the advanced one? No, you have to go here first, this line. Because you want to appreciate the books. You don't want to just read them. Imagine I just read however I want. I read something, but I didn't get nothing. And after that, there's more and more, right? Asfahaniya and there's a lot, right? But we just want to get that far. We want brothers and sisters to understand. If you're going from Wasatiyya above, you're getting into intermediate zone, then you Hamawiyya, the Munadhara, all that stuff. If you go to the Tadmuriyya, you're getting advanced. The words advanced. And that's a great sign post. Here, alhamdulillah, all these classes have been covered. But obviously, a person has to. They haven't covered them before, or they want to study them in this order. You take your time. Ultimately, at the end of all of this, these books, they have an objective. Each one of them is supposed to get you something. But before continuing, because again, we're just going to stop with that much in the explanation of the Aqidah stuff, because Aqidah is so many books. After there's so many more. But that's a beautiful curriculum. Many of the ulama advise. Everything I mentioned to you now, many of the ulama, they mentioned this is the order. For example, Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh, he has a book, How to Read, a lecture, How to Read Ibn Taymiyyah's books. And he says, Wasatiyya, Hamawiyya, Tadmuriyya, like that. All the ulama agree, these three. Wasatiyya, Hamawiyya, Tadmuriyya. And the reason why they keep mentioning this is the order of difficulty. And also the order of importance you can see. As you're going up, what's happening? You're getting more and more focused. You're going general to specific, right? You get to the Muriyah, it's just like the arguments are all focused on Allah's names and attributes. Why? Because that's what you're preparing to understand better. That's what you're trying to respond to. Now, brothers, what does the Aqidah cover in general? Just in case someone wants to know how many chapters are it. Let's read them. All right. So we said the Aqidah is the 6 pillars of Iman. Number 1, Iman in Allah. That's the first chapter, Aqidah. Number 2, Iman in the Malaika. Number 3, Iman in the books. Number 4, Iman in the messengers. Number 5, Iman in the Day of Judgment. And lastly, Iman in the Qadr. That's the 6, right? Then the scholars, they add 3 more chapters. But before going there, where does Tawheed fit into all of this? Iman billah. Tawheed, underneath Iman billah, you put Tawheed, Uluhiyya, Rububiyyah, Asma wa Sifat. All 3 categories of Tawheed go there. So when you study Iman billah, you get into Tawheed too. Then the Malaika goes. So it's very important. Because, as we'll see in a second, Tawheed and Aqidah, they go hand in hand. Their relationship is general specific. Tawheed is general specific, Aqidah is general. The next chapters, then the ulama, they add 3 more chapters. So number 7, Iman and its meaning, the definition of Iman, Musamma al-Iman. Right, so that's why the ulama have whole chapters on that. Right, Murji'ah, right, the group have problem with Iman, so you're dealing with them there. The definition of Iman, what's Iman? I mean, alhamdulillah, we studied some class now. What's Iman, categories of Iman, levels of Iman, Kufr, Nifaq. Number 8, As-Sahaba. Iman bi Sahaba. Fi Sahaba. Who are they? What's their status? What do you believe or we don't believe? What's the difference between Ahl Sunnah, Shia? It's part of the Aqidah. Even though it's not connected to Allah, the ulama always put it in there. Right? Because it's a minhaji issue. It's a methodological issue, but also part of Aqidah because we love Allah and we love those who the Messenger of Allah loved too, which is Sahaba. Allah loves them, we love them. And the last one, Kitab al-Imamah. Number 10, it's 10? 9? 9? Yeah. That's 9 or 10? Okay, the 9, yeah. Al-Imamah, which is the governance, the ruler. Abdul Sultan. Who's the ruler? How it's the condition? How you... Today everyone's talking about khuruj al-hukam and mashallah. You had the end of Aqidah? See, come on. Some people on I'm going to tell you about the khuruj al-hukam. Tell me about Allah first. What's your understanding of Tawheed? The guy, maybe he doesn't know Tawheed, but he's telling us about that. When you can make khuruj al-imam. Okay, end the chapters. Why is it the end of Aqidah? Have you noticed this, guys? It's like me, you open fiqh book, not tahara, not salah. Had bil hudud. At the end, we're talking about how to cut the hand and where to cut it. We're all going to laugh. What's this guy doing? And you see, the fiqh books have a logic, right? Aqidah books also. Someone doesn't know Allah. How is he going to tell us about the hakim? Because what's the problem we have today? The guy's going to say, the hakim is the kafir. Okay, what's kufr? You skipped chapter number 7. You didn't even know it. So, your naqad doesn't even count. Your criticism is batil. You know what I'm saying? You ask someone, why is he kafir? He tell you something's not even kufr. So what were you studying? He didn't study. MashaAllah. Very important. Every chapter here, there's a group that has a problem with it. So Qadr, the Qadariyah. Iman, the Murji'ah. Sahaba, the Rafidah. Imama, the Khawarij al-Mu'tazilah. So you see how the ulama, they put these books, it's also manhaj too, methodology, but you see, this is how we're going to start. Aqidah shows 9 or 10 chapters, you could say. How about Iman in the names and attributes of Allah? Where does that fall? Iman billah. So you see, when you're studying the Aqidah, have you noticed the reason why the ulama, they spend time on Tawheed, what names and attributes of Allah? Because they're under Iman billah. What's the most important? Allah. It's the number 1 in the list. It doesn't mean then someone does not study the other chapters, but you have to study all the chapters in general, then you make specification. So for example, if someone studies the basic Aqidah, he should know what to believe about the Qiyamah. He can't be, I don't know much about the Qiyamah. No, generally you know about it. Then you come back around and say, okay, now let's talk about Allah's attributes, more detail. So I learn all of them in general, and then we learn in more detail. So the system we use, you said, it's like layers. Layer 1, intermediate, beginner. Then layer 2, intermediate. Then layer 3, in advanced. So when you go layering, what happens? You're going around. So you covered the basics. So that you're not going to walk around every day and night and you say, I don't know anything about Qadr. No, you have to know. Well, maybe you don't know the details, but you know the general. And that's why it's beneficial to read books, like I said, Ibn Uthaymeen's book, Explanation of Iman, because he gives you the summaries, the mujmal. So, for example, if you want to make talqeen, indoctrination, or whatever, what's the word for it, education, da'wam, that's what you do. Come, iman billah, iman bi wujudi, tawheed al-rububiyyah, wa uluhiyyah, wa asma sifat. And that's the four you need. Next, you could do the whole aqidah for someone like that generally. And if someone wants more detail, you can do details. So the benefit behind this is to know the curriculum ahead. The benefit behind it also be where you're going. You know where you're going, right? You finish one, you go to the other. So Wasatiyya covers all of them. Hamawiyya, what does it cover? Mainly, number one. Right? Iman billah. See the difference? Wasatiyya covers all of them. The Hamawiyya, you're going back to number one only. Tadmuriyya, you're going to one of one. You're going to Tawheed, Asma' Sifat only. You see this? Tawheed, Kitab al-Tawheed, where is it covering? We talked about last week. Kitab al-Tawheed is Iman billah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. That's it. So that's your roadmap in your head when you're looking at what you're studying. So you get a book. If it's a book on Aqidah, what do you want to know? What chapters is in the Aqidah? What does it cover? Where does it fall into my big scheme of things? And the same for any subject. Under all of these topics, there is issues at hand, debates, very few, because Aqidah is mostly ijma'at, alhamdulillah, it's mostly consensus. So it's Quran, Sunnah, wal ijma'. But there are some small differences, opinion, and scholars differ because there's no clear text, for example. But most of the Aqidah issues are easy to understand, clear-cut. The issue is that there are many of them. So the ulama say the person, he needs to know what he needs to know, and then as he grows, for example, didn't we say Aqidah is ilm al-ghaya? Didn't we say Aqidah is objective knowledge? So what are you doing in objective knowledge? When you go to advanced Aqidah, what are you doing there? You're studying in minus shade, the details, super details of these issues. Very detailed stuff. For example, you're going into a topic of super detail. And there's books for that too. So for example, some of the ulama, they recommend a book is called Mawsu' al-Aqidah wal-Adyan. Saudi recently published this book, the Jam'iyyat al-Aqidah, has published an encyclopedia of Aqidah. It's called Mawsu'at al-Aqidah wal-Adyan. Mawsu'at al-Aqidah wal-Adyani. Wal-Firaq wal-Madahib Ma'asara. Beautiful. 10 volumes. Even a website for it. All kinds of topics of Aqidah. Details. For example, I want to know about Adam alayhi salam, more detail. Okay, go there. You want to know about the arwah, the souls? Go there. So this is like the deep stuff, right? Or like, for example, I'm just interested, I'm curious in something. I go there, I research it. It has a search button, so you go IslamicCreed.net. You want it? IslamicCreed.net. It's only Arabic right now, brother, so I think there is maybe English, I don't know, but I don't see it. But the reason why I'm mentioning is that later on, you can just go and some ulama say that's where you go and do some extra readings, right? And it's written by specialists of Aqidah, ulama of varying specialties, all came together. And I think the Mushrif was Sheikh Saud al-Khalaf from Saudi, was specialized in Aqidah. I think him and others, and some of the Kibar ulama gave taqdeem this book, they gave him an introduction. So the reason why I'm saying that, like some extra stuff, that's what the ulama are discussing. So for example, contemporary issues come up, the ulama are going to discuss it and research it. Me and you, we just want the basics. There is nawazil in Aqidah, right? You know nawazil, new issues. There are new issues in fiqh, new issues in Aqidah, nawazil. Like, all this energy stuff we hear about today, energy and auras and manifestations. It's all nonsense, right? Nawazil Aqidah, it's kufr. But the ulama explain it. So that's a new thing. So me and you, leave it to the ulama, that one. I just need to know the basics. So now I want to move on, brothers, to some more benefits about studying. And talking about now, once we know the curriculum, so now we have a second curriculum line about Aqidah, how do you study these issues? So what you need to do, you need to figure out the most important questions that you need to cover in this subject. What are the most important subjects, the questions in this subject matter I need to know? So some of the brothers, what happens when they study these books, they don't get the most important subject, the most important conclusion. They get some conclusions, but not the most important ones. So they feel like they read the book and they studied the tapes and they took a conclusion that wasn't what the Shaykh wanted you to take. Like Wasatiyya, what you really want to do is know all the Aqidah, but you can see Ibn Taymiyyah really wants us to get ready for the names and attributes of Allah. That's one of his higher objectives. And you could tell because that's where the debate went. So the benefit behind that is that some of the scholars they mentioned, every subject you should know the principle, the major questions that revolve around. Let's use Tawheed as an example today. The study of Tawheed, we already mentioned some books last week. We said starting with the 4 fundamental principles, and then we went to the 3 fundamental principles, then the 4 fundamental principles, then we mentioned Kitab al-Tawheed, and then we said Kashf Shubuhat and Nullifiers. So we mentioned a curriculum. The question someone asked, when I study all of that, what do I need? Sheikh Salih Sindi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he answered this question recently. What he asked, he answered if somebody wants to perfect the subject of Tawheed, there's 5 questions you need to be able to answer. 5 subject areas you need to master. And it's important because this gives you the roadmap beforehand. So every time you're studying and trying to get that question, right? Do I know that question? Question number 1. What is Tawheed? What is the Tawheed that the Prophet ﷺ came to explain to the Ummah? That's the first fundamental question in Tawheed we're trying to conclude. So of the 3 categories of Tawheed, which one Rasulullah ﷺ came with? Like he specialized in mostly. Was it Rububiyyah, Lordship, Uluhiyyah, worship, or names, attributes? It's the worship, Uluhiyyah. So that's the first question. Why is the Shaykh put that as the first question? Did Rasulullah come to teach the Ummah about Rububiyyah? They already know, right? And in Salatuhum, if you ask them, they already know. But the Ash'ari, Mu'tazila, Maturidiyya, all of them say that's the first Tawheed. Then Tawheed Rasulullah and the Anbiya wa Rasul is Tawheed Rububiyyah. They missed the mark. They missed it like totally. Like they went left field, right? What are you talking about? Rasulullah came to teach Tawheed Rububiyyah. And some of them, the way they explain that, the Adillah, it is more shocking than what you imagine. And so that's a fundamental question because me and you take it for granted. Tawheed worship, right? They worship idols. You go to another Muslim and say, no, brother, how do you prove Allah's existence? And you're like, I'm a Muslim, I already know. And I'm teaching you now all this complicated, not the kafir, you. They say everyone has to study how to prove Allah's existence, even the children. So we're like, okay, this is Rasulullah ﷺ, 23 years, he didn't do that. So that's the first question. Second question, what is shirk? Not just generally, details. See, brothers, some of us, we know shirk, everyone knows what shirk is. But we say, okay, give me the definition. Give me the surah, the examples. Give me the aqsam. It's hard now. Shirk is not so like black and white, brothers and sisters. It's detail. And why is that an important question? Again, other groups of Muslims misunderstood shirk. If they said Tawheed Rasulullah ﷺ was lordship, so what is shirk in lordship? La ilaha illallah, not rububiyyah, no. If you did shirk in lordship. That's what they consider shirk. But if you do like worshiping graves and stuff, yeah, it's haram, that's it. Maybe the best we could say. Not shirk. And this is important. It's the ummah I'm talking, brothers. Ummah, not non-Muslims, ummah. The people are saying this. So we have to know shirk. We have to become specialists in knowing shirk. In detail, not just a little bit. You have to know in detail what are the categories, definitions. Because if you don't know it very well, your studies of the 4 fundamental principles, for example, of shirk, you didn't study it in the most effective manner. You finished the book, but what do you want? What is shirk? Very important. Next chapter, third question. What is ibadah? What is worship? Again, it sounds easy, but it's not. مفهوم العبادة عند أهل السنة والجماعة. What is it? What's our concept? What is another concept out there? We know the Christians they don't have it right. Jews don't have it. But some Muslims have misunderstood ibadah because they misunderstood tawheed. So ibadah today, this is where the debate is, right? Some will say that's not worship. You bow down to the idol or you ask the idol of the grave. We're going to say it's shirk. They're going to say it's tawassul, akhi. Tawassul. It's min نوع من ibadah. We're calling it shirk. He's saying it's tawassul. He's calling it ibadah. That's how bad it is, right? Imagine we're saying, okay, this is shirk. Is this istiqatha? No, it's tawassul. Now we're debating definitions. Okay, what's tawassul? Let's go. What's the debate? Let's discuss. But have you noticed people don't realize where this is happening? Right now, some du'at are out there working day and night to misunderstand, make us misunderstand tawheed. Yes, that's what they're doing, brothers. Some ulama said today's time is a very, very critical time for people to understand the basics because a lot of the doubts are being revived. After an era of, you could say, a lot of tawheed being taught, the doubts are coming back. So what is ibadah? Number 4, what was the situation of the polytheists at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Means what was their hal? What were they doing? What were they worshipping? How were they worshipping the shirk they're doing? What kind of actions were they doing? Very important. So it's like a historical and also a contextual. What was Rasulullah ﷺ dealing with? What were the Quraysh up to? What kind of shirk were they doing? Why is this an important question? Because again, some people want to imagine that the Quraysh were not doing shirk that we're doing. They're going to say shirk today is new. Quraysh, it's different. So therefore, you cannot call today's shirk because Quraysh did different shirk. They did shirk, we're not doing shirk. And why are they saying this? Because they say the surah, the form looks different. And the intention is different. See, it gets complicated. For example, someone says when they go to the grave, I'm asking the awliya to ask Allah. Different, I'm not asking him directly. And someone will sit back and say, oh, well, the Quraysh used to ask the idol. They used to worship the idol And who was behind it to get to Allah? Is it the same thing? See? And that's how they're throwing people into confusion. They're saying, we're doing differently. How do you call this shirk? And I tell them, wait, it is still shirk. And you misunderstood the entire subject. That's why the removal of doubt, Shaykh Islam Muhammad Wahhab spends a lot of time on these issues, right? And the reason why is, you notice, what he was dealing with, we are dealing with today. The last question now, what is the difference between Tawheed of Lordship, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, and Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, Tawheed of Worship? So Salih Sindi mentions these 5. So Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah are different, right? According to Hassan and Jama'ah, right? But according to the Ash'ira, they're the nafs al-shay, same thing. Tell them, how is it the same? One's called Rububiyyah, one's called Uluhiyyah. I say, no, it's different words, same idea. No, it's wrong. That's totally wrong. See, brothers, they'll say Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah. But how? They have different ishtiqaqat, they come with different derivatives. Right? What is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah? Anyone wants to tell us what's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah again? Tawheed Lordship, Allah's Lordship. Tawheed Allah fi af'alihi. Tawheed of Allah and His actions. And what's Tawheed al-Ibadah? Tawheed Allah fi af'al al-abd. My actions, Uluhiyyah. Uluhiyyah. Tawheed Allah's actions, Rububiyyah. That's the line in the sand. See, it's so easy, right? But not so easy. Because every Muslim should know that. Rububiyyah is what? Tawheed, single out Allah in His actions. Uluhiyyah, singling out Allah in my actions towards Him. So how are you mixing the two? Who's worshipping, Allah or me? I'm worshipping, that's Tawheed. And when it comes to Allah's action, that's Tawheed. Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah. And so ulama also have nice charts where they differentiate them, right? And the reason why, you go to someone today and say, Akhi, this is shirk. And they'll say, no, this is not. Or someone will say, this is Tawheed. And when he says Tawheed, he means Allah's oneness. So have you noticed that some of the most popular groups in da'wah focus all their attention on proving Allah's oneness? When I say oneness, I mean His existence. And you're like, mashallah, that's very good work, but what about Allah's right to worship? No, if you accept Allah as one, and He's only one who is perfect and necessary, and khalas, you have Islam. But what if I start worshiping another God? Isn't that shirk? See? This is why these 5 questions are very helpful. You can put them in front of you in every study you do. So every book you study, you're trying to get to answering one of those 5. So Shaykh Salih Sindi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he mentioned this. Beautiful. Now, these questions are helpful. But what will also be helpful, and this is another benefit, once you have the questions you're looking for, what do you need next? I need to find out if I can answer the questions. Right? How do you know you answer the questions? So most of us, we study any subject by studying the issues, the subject matter, the adillah, the evidences, the explanation. But one of the things that's missing, and the ulama they talk about, and they say it's a problem now, is the qawa'id wa usul, fundamental principles. So in fiqh, we tend to know there's principles, fiqh maxims. In aqeedah, there's maxims. And some of the scholars, like in Medina, Shaykh Tariq al-Qahtani, for example, one of the professors in Islamic University in Medina, he has a book on Qawa'id al-Tawheed, Qawa'id al-Tawheed al-Mufid. And he mentioned the Muqaddimah that many students of knowledge, they don't know the Qawa'id al-Tawheed. That's why they get da'if in Aqeedah. Because someone mentioned an example, he can't tell you shirk akbar wa asghar. What's going on? You finished the books, right? It's akbar asghar. I say, I don't know. I know it's shirk, but I don't know which one. That's a weakness in study, right? So if someone asks you, is it shirk? You're going to tell them, yes, shirk. Next, major or minor. Should tell them major or minor. And then that's what you want. How to fix it. Do this. That's essentially what you're trying to do. That's what we need. But imagine today someone asks you, shirk, it's shirk. What kind is it? I don't know. Major or minor? And you say, okay, it's major. Oh, you made takfir this guy. You could become kafir maybe. We don't know. See? Imagine to someone, this is major shirk, akhi. And you thought you did your job, but then later on you realize, oh, there's a major and minor. I made a big mistake. This means that we need principles to govern the chapters. So like you memorize adillah, you need to also memorize principles. And these principles are fast and hard rules you can keep in your back pocket, even when you forget the matun. Have you seen the ulama reading any matan to any shaykh or anybody when they answer questions? The matan is to understand, to memorize the basics. And when they answer the question, how do they answer? قال الله وقال الرسول, and they bring you the qa'idah. You're like, okay, I want to do what he's doing. How does he know that? Because they learn and they study these principles. That's what we need, brothers. This is what make a lot of us go from not knowing what we're talking about or feel that way to certainty. Most of us, we know things, but we want to be like, I know it. I know this is right. 100%. You can't shake me on that. Especially Tawheed. There's no, what's the margin of error, right? 0, right? Inshallah. It shouldn't be like Tawheed is wishy-washy. Especially Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah. That's our specialty, right? You can't. So the ulama mentioned there's a problem there. So there are books to help us. Let's look at one example of how we would take a topic and a principle, and it can help us maintain that understanding. So Tawheed is many topics, right? Like let's say there's like, not a dozen, 100 different topics out there. Let's just say. There's more maybe, but let's say there's 100 major issues. Kitab al-Tawheed is approximately 74 roughly chapters. Approximately. 74. After every chapter, Shaykh al-Islam teaches us a chapter, a proof, and issues. So he takes these chapters as the talking points. We call them in knowledge, masail, issues. These are topics, masail. Fiqh is the same thing, right? Every subject has masail. So once you identify the issue, the next thing you want to identify is the proof for it. Right? What is the proof? So Shaykh al-Islam says, Allah says, Rasulullah said. Okay, there you go, you got that. The next, he's going to give you some of the masail at the bottom, the takeaways. At the end of all that, how do you tie that chapter together with the principle? So you can remember the principle in case you forgot the evidence, because the principle is based on evidence. But you need both in order to give a good answer. Let's take a look at an example. One of the chapters in Kitab al-Tawheed has to do with tying amulets and things like that. Right? Amulets, right? And so in this subject, most of us we know, it's not allowed to tie amulets and the likes. It's considered shirk, right? What kind of shirk is it? Kind of shirk, right? Or that's the original ruling. So let's now look at that chapter, and I'm going to give you the principle and see how useful it is. Okay, and there are books like this, alhamdulillah, that save us a lot of time. So in the chapter, Shaykh al-Islam brings a hadith and adillah to show that you can't tie amulets to yourself or to animals to do what? To bring about good or ward off evil. That's what an amulet is. It's not a necklace of your wife, right? Otherwise, you're going to say, "Huwa araq, yani tamam." Some people, that's what they think. Anything you hung is tamam. Yeah, Shaykh, what is this? And you're going to hang your shoes and your jacket on the wall. Some people went that far. They got everything mixed up. They didn't even understand the ta'rif. That's how bad things can get. So we don't want to go there. You want to first define what is it? Hanging something on yourself or your car or your animals or your children, the likes, for what? To bring about benefit or to dispel harm, like the evil eye or sihr or something. And the thing which you're trying to dispel or gain, whatever it is, it could be a good reason, it could be not so good reason. But the thing that you're hanging, the reason why it's not allowed is because that thing you're hanging on yourself or others doesn't benefit you in that cause. It's not a means to get that thing away or bring that thing in. So for example, if I wear like a bracelet, believing this bracelet is going to give me extra energy to protect myself from shayateen, what's wrong with this? That bracelet cannot stop you from shayateen. You want to stop the shayateen bothering you, you read adhkar. So this subject then is about asbab, means. That's what the whole topic is about. So you're taking the right means for the right causes. So today people, when they have the Quran in their neck, they say, it's the Quran, akhi, Quran. And what do we tell them? Even the Quran, you can't do it. Why? Because the Quran is a shifa, it's a protection, but not like this. Not how you do it. You have to read the Quran. So the scholars then, they give us a principle. Anything that's taken as a means to bring about benefit or to dispel harm, which has not been proven to do so Islamically or scientifically, فهو شرك. قاعدة جامعة, ikhwan. This is قاعدة جامعة. It's finished in that chapter. It's a قاعدة that covers all of it. Anything, any means somebody takes to bring about benefit or to dispel harm that's not established in the Sharia, means Quran and Sunnah said it, or qadran. Qadran means science or experience. The ulama use shar'an wa qadra. Shar'an means Quran and Sunnah. Qadran means the rules. Qadra kawniyya, like scientifically we found out, or experience shows this works. Fahuwa shirk. And now, when you learn this principle then, the ulama say the reason why this is shirk, because those means, if they're not proven for Sharia or to science or experimentation, it's not a means. And if it's not a means, it can't do what it's supposed to do. So you relying upon it is what? Minor shirk. When does it become major shirk? When you think that thing itself can do it all by itself. Now you've given no' min rububiyyah Allah's quality of rububiyyah, the one who's only one who can bring about good and evil, to something on Allah, for shirk akbar then. You see, when you wear it, and you have that belief, shirk asghar. Why? Because you're taking haram means. It's getting you closer to shirk akbar. But if I say this band in my hand, it protects me from shayateen by itself, not even Allah, فهو shirk akbar. Because who is the one who brings good and bad? Illa Allah. Allah says in the Quran, by talking about His qualities, right? قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ. This is one of the ayahs Shaykh Hassan quotes. مَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. That which you call besides Allah. إِنْ أَرَادَنِي اللَّهُ بِدُرٍّ هَلْ هُنَّ كَاشِفَةُ الدُّرِّ. If Allah wanted to harm me, can they stop the harm? أَوْ أَرَادَنِي بِرَحْمَةٍ. Or He wants good for me and mercy. هَلْ هُنَّ مُمْسِكَاتُ رَحْمَتِهِ. Can they stop Allah's rahmah? وَالْحَسْبِيَ Allah. So if I think this thing could do all by itself, then it becomes the ilah, right? Or it becomes like Allah. So طيب. Now that we understand this qa'idah, now you can apply it to many juz'iyat, many examples. Example number one, Nabi Sallallahu said, "Man allaqa tamimatan faqad ashraka." Whoever ties any amulet is committed shirk, minor shirk originally. So, for example, some people have amulets on the arm here, on the ear. So, when you see someone with amulet, what's the question you're going to ask them? Why are you wearing it? See, that's the governing question. Why are you wearing it? Because how do you know it's major, minor shirk, or not even shirk? Ulama say once we have a qa'idah, the principle can only apply when someone has the conditions. So you see somebody with a band on your hand. Why are you wearing that? He's going to say, well, this is my flag in my country. Okay, that's not allowed for men. Men shouldn't wear bracelets. So you're going to say, just take it off. The Shabbat Nisa, that's a different chapter. Right? Because some people now, they're wearing these bracelets. They're not going to say shirk. Why? Because he's not wearing it too. What's the rule? Bring good and deflect evil. So imagine today, you see some guy, but it's shirk. No. You see, this is people are laughing because it happened, right? It happened, right? Somebody's going home and then everybody's doing shirk now. Then you have to go upstairs and then come down. You've gone overboard. And it's happening. It happens. So what do you have to do? You have to ask questions. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen explains beautifully. The guardian for this subject, this one, is the question. It goes back to the niyyah of the wearer. Very important. That's the fa'idah. You ask them, why are you doing it? You say, oh, this is for this purpose. Okay. If it's for this purpose, it's shirk, minor. For that purpose, major. If you're wearing it for beautification. So some people, they know that sisters, some of them, they have the eye, the Egyptian eye, what they call the blue eye, and they wear necklaces. What's their intention behind it? Some of them, but most of them, it looks nice. And zina, right? You ask them what it is, someone says, I don't even know what it is. Looks nice. Oh, there's a lot of people like that. It's on the house, what's this? Oh, I bought it from Amazon. So you get to, this is just, sister, this is haram. Why? Ulama say if you're wearing it for beauty, it's tashabbuh al-kuffar. You're copying the kuffar who do that. So please take it away. It's haram. Even if you have no niyyah. Because haram to do that, right? This is stepping stone. So Sharia is haram. But then you increase your niyyah to protection, shirk, minor shirk. You think it protects yourself, major shirk. See? Today, there's some people who walk around in their undercar, they have a rabbit's foot. If you want to figure out what they're doing, you have to ask them, okay, what is that? And sometimes you have to pretend like someone doesn't know, right? You say, okay, you know what that is? I don't know. Okay, good. This is haram. The fa'idah. See this qa'idah, how it comes in handy? You know when it's shirk, when it's not shirk, what kind of shirk? And that's in your back pocket. You know, inshallah, you can do as you need. Fa'idah, I was reading the biography this week of Sheikh Abdul Qara'awi, rahimahullah, the Mujaddid of Jazan. Sheikh Abdul Qara'awi, most of us, we might not know him, but he's the teacher of Hafid Hakimi, Ahmed Najmi, Sayyid Madkhali, all these great imams. He's the Mujaddid, the reviver of the south of Saudi Arabia. And his biography is so amazing, right? Allahumma barak, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'ah. He's the one who produced Hafid Hakimi, who died very young, and this great alim. Qara'awi, one of his specialities, of course, he was sent by Mufti Ibrahim, Muhammad Ibrahim. In fact, he saw a dream. The Rasul was in his dream and he pointed to the south. You go south for da'wah. So he went. Jazan, if you know, it's close to the Yemen border. It's a very mutawadi, a modest place. So he went amongst farmers, and if you see even the lifestyle, subhanAllah. But this Shaykh, he brought the Tawheed and ulama. He opened more than 2,000 madaris with us. Kitab al-Sunnah. He has his own schools. And Madrasa Samita, Salafiyah. For all these ulama being, and he loved to open these schools. And he's teaching Tawheed left, right, and center. His biography is very inspiring. He's a great imam. In there, there's a fa'idah. When they were studying Kitab al-Tawheed, of course, the students went in different cities, and they went to the village teaching the kids, the students and young people Tawheed. They got to this chapter. So what happened when they got to the chapter? You know, the farmers, they have things on the animals. So when the sheikh is teaching, read the hadith, then he told everybody, please, when you go, if you see them, if it's like this, cut it off. So everybody went out, they're cutting them. Right? And then there was one, he said, we found one on a big cow. And we were scared to cut it from the cow because we're going to make it trouble. So they said we had some hikmah. We told the person, the owner of the cow, come to the sheikh. And the sheikh cut it. And the sheikh, everyone respects him. Even the awam, they love him, right? So he said, I'll cut it for you. Hikmah, see, there's some things not out of your league, right? Out of your pay league. You shouldn't go there. Especially if you know it's going to cause fasad. But look, he had them authorized to do that. Because of course, the dua. But look at the fa'idah, they understood the mas'ala, that they can apply it. But what happens if I misunderstood the mas'ala, brothers? I didn't understand the issue. Maybe I have good intentions, but I could cause more harm. So sometimes when you study like this, Kitab al-Tawheed and many other books become more meaningful, more measurable, more easy to remember. And again, there's so many more of this, but that's just an example. So I highly recommend the brothers and sisters, when they're studying, to come up with these major issues and topics and questions they need to answer. The ulama usually they try to explain the muqaddimah or the explanation, the commentaries, why this book is useful, but also principles. And that's only one of the many chapters of Kitab al-Tawheed. There's more, right? So every chapter, you want the evidence and the understanding of the principle governing it. So that way, when you have the list, you can memorize the principles, and you can help yourself and your family to be guided, and you can even give lectures. Imagine, because the principle is kulli. Kulli means it's universal. Underneath it goes the examples. So if you have one principle, now, mashallah, you can give a long lecture. Right? You give some ulama write the whole book on one principle. On one principle, they cover like most of the aqidah can go under 1, 2. So see the beauty of that. And who taught us this way of learning? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the man came to him asking about whether or not they can use the water of the Bulugh Maram, when you got Al-Fajr teaching us about drinking the water of the ocean, can we make a wudu with it? What did Nabi Sallallahu say? Tuhuru ma'uhu illu maytatuhu. Nabi Sallallahu gave him qa'ida kulliyya. The whole of its water is pure, and all of its animals are halal. The man never asked about animals, but take the qa'ida with you. See, the Prophet gave you principles. So now we have beautiful. Now we have the answer and plus some. So imagine someone asks you a question, this is haram, I'll do you better. Here's the qa'idah. The person will be like, mashallah, you saved my life now. Now he can walk around with that. And this is why, inshallah, if we study this way, you also find your studies will be more fruitful, more, I believe, also a lot more, for most students, it will become more documented. Let's finish, inshallah, before we get to the second half, about what we stopped on last week about schedule. We spoke about schedule. The ulama give advice, everyone has to make a schedule according to their lifestyle. Whether your wife or husband, a full-time employee, part-time student, full-time student, doesn't matter. There's many advice to ulama. And I want to talk about, since the more brothers here, about the advice for the employee. A lot of us, we go to work, and because of that, we don't have that much time. How do you balance between the two? The Sahaba instead of did it. And now we'll talk about the example. Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu mentioned in the Hadith Bukhari, Hadith 89. He said, me and my Ansari neighbor from Bani Umayyah bin Zayd, who used to live in the neighborhood Al-Awari in Medina, used to visit the Prophet ﷺ by turns. So him and his neighbor make turns. He used to go one day, and I another day. When I went, I used to bring the news of the day regarding the divine inspiration and other things. And when he went, he used to do the same for me. At the end of the hadith. So Umar and his neighbor are taking turns going to the durus. One day him, one day his neighbor, one day him, and they share. What he learns, he picks up. What he misses, he picks up. Today, we need this. His classes, for example, the message every day. You can't come every day, you pick one. And your friend picks another if you can't come all of them. Or today's time is even easier. You listen online, you can't miss. So because you see the class is usually at night because people are working, it's understood. From this hadith, Hafid ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari, he writes, volume 1, page 223, in this hadith is the benefit that a student should not be negligent looking after the affair of his livelihood. See, student knowledge is to work. Because Umar, what does he have? A lot of children, more than one wife, he has business, he's a businessman. He's second in line, the Sahaba, after Abu Bakr, it's him. He's busy, but he still has time for lessons. In fact, this livelihood that he was seeking for his family himself got in his way one time from his studies. Because remember the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri when he came and told him about 3 times you knocked and you leave? Umar said, I don't know the hadith. Go and get a witness to tell me that hadith is authentic. Then he came and he told him the witness, and Umar got angry and said, the business got me away from this hadith. How could I miss that hadith? See his attention? He got upset. It's like us today. You're working extra hours. Shoot, I missed the class. Should be upset. Some of us would say, oh, don't worry, tomorrow's a new day. Right? La ilaha illallah. How do you know tomorrow's a new day? You see, some of us wouldn't have that intention because we think it's always going to be there. Brothers, imagine you study like that. How are you going to study? But if you told yourself that class is not going to come back, or that ship is going to sail, you won't do that. That's one way to push yourself to know this class. I can make it, I'll make it. If I can't make it, then I listen. There's no way around that. There's between the two. Now, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, Sharh Sahih Bukhari, look, Ibn Uthaymeen now is going to give us contemporary explanation. He says it's permissible from this hadith for a person to agree with his companion to attend a lesson one day and his companion the next. And then he brings in what he heard. And this is in relation to people who memorize what happens. As for our current time, he says, then the preservers and memorizers are weak. However, Allah brought a substitute. All praise due to Him and His tape recorders. Take a look. See, this is the fa'idah. So the recorders nowadays suffice from the needed to fixed rotation of learning knowledge. So a person comes with his recorder, records the lesson, then another person listens to what was recorded, and this is from the blessings of Allah. So you go to class, you record it, you get the recording for your friend who's behind you, who's not there. That's accountability too, brothers, you see? If you told yourself, I'm listening for me and my friend, how are you going to listen? Better than if I told you just for you. So some of us, we need that too. Like imagine you tell yourself, I'm going to go home and tell my wife, my mom, what I learned. You're going to listen carefully this time because when they ask you what you learned, you don't look like a fool. Say, I didn't learn nothing. Brothers, this is also fa'idah that we can study and balance between our knowledge and our work. Another thing we should also know is that we all have free time anyways. Brothers always and sisters ask, what about if I'm very busy? Okay, you're not busy in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're not busy in Umar radiallahu anhu. You have a lot of dead time. And the dead time is the time we use and we're not doing anything. Like when you're waiting for something to microwave. You're just standing there. What are you doing? Get your phone, read something. You think that's a small time, right? It's not. That's a few minutes, you're waiting, you just pick up a hadith, review something. Look at Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah. Abdul Wadi'iyya, his daughter writes, Hafidhullah ta'ala, about her father, Shaykh Muqbil Hadi al-Wadi'i. She says that my father, rahimahullah, if a cup of coffee was brought to him, he used to take off the lid of the coffee and let it cool down. This was because of high ambitions. He don't have time to wait for the coffee to cool. He puts the cap down, and lets it cool, and he's still researching. See, cup of coffee, mashallah, there's nothing wrong. But what are you going to do? Wait all day till it gets cold? You don't have time. Mashayikh, this is how they are. Every time is something to do. The dead time is cumulative. Build it. On the way home, you're driving, the commute. It's a beautiful example. You're wasting so much time. Instead of getting angry with the traffic, put the tape on. Listen to the lecture. You won't even care the traffic is taking longer because you have something to listen to. The secret, brothers. You listen to the lecture. There's more traffic like that, I'm still going. But for some of us, we're just so busy. Or how about you walking down the street, taking your daily walk? You want to exercise? Put your earphones in. You don't have to listen to something heavy. You can listen to something light. Fatawa. Nur ala darb, Shaykh Faisal, Hafidhullah ta'ala. Just listen to fatawa. Ala hawa, beautiful. Just learning just different fatawa. This is the soft stuff, right? It doesn't require a lot of energy. Or how about you're washing dishes? There's not much you can do there. Press play. Put the Quran on. Let's see the muraja. Most of us, you notice, if you see a talib al-ilm versus non-talib al-ilm, you see that's the difference. Talib al-ilm, there's no time wasted. Everything is, he's got all his phones, his phones, all his lessons, the computer, his car, everything is ready to go. And the mashayikh will do that in an environment where it's not even conducive. Imagine, some scholars, so the benefit behind this, brothers, if you have that will, you'll get it. I mentioned before, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, one of his students, is a driver. He mentioned about his own shaykh. He said, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, I used to drive him to far distances. We used to go Riyadh, we used to go Taif and places like this. Every time we used to be Ibn Uthaymeen in the car, he said Ibn Uthaymeen used to bring Shaykh al-Albani tape and put it in the cassette. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he used to listen to Nur ala Darb. Imagine, what about me, brothers? Nur ala Darb, who cannot miss it? Ibn Uthaymeen is listening to it. You got Shaykh al-Albani's series. Nur ala Darb is 1,000 plus tapes of Shaykh al-Albani's majalis sittings. Full of ilm. It's a casual sitting. It's in his house. But those fatawa, they're coming out of there. So Allahu Akbar. So Shaykh Uthaymeen used to listen on his way to Riyadh. Well, today we can download the whole thing on your computer. And then what happens? Well, we have to think about it. So that's a helpful way to get you to find ways to squeeze in some lessons and some other extra things, especially when you know that you don't have the kind of sit down. Most of us can't sit down for hours. Okay, break it up. One last benefit I want to connect to this. We should never give up about our aspirations. You can still make it, no matter what age you are, to gain a high level of knowledge if you correct your intention and the path. Imam Ibn Wardi, he writes in his Lamiyya, right? This Lamiyya Ibn Wardi, which is a book, a poem about seeking knowledge. لا تقول قد ذهبت أربابه. Don't say the people of knowledge have all died and gone. كل من سار على الدرب وصل. Anyone who takes the path reaches the goal. Beautiful lines. I always mention this. كل من سار على الدرب وصل. Anyone who walks the path will reach it. That's the intention. If I'm going down طلب علم من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له طريقا الجنة. The طريق الجنة becomes easy. Just walk the path, see where you get. And some people say, brother, is all this work? Look at Imam San'ani, look at these beautiful lines of poetry. He says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يُجَرِّبْ لَيْسَ يَعْرِفُ قَدْرَهُ فَجَرِّبْ تَجِبْ تَصْدِيقَ مَا قَدْ ذَكَرْنَاهُ. Allahu Akbar. He says, and whoever doesn't try, then he doesn't know his own capability. So try and find confirmation of what I'm mentioning to you. You don't believe all of this, brothers? Try. Jarrib, yani go, try for yourself. And tomorrow you're going to see Allahu Akbar. Suddenly, and all this becomes easy. Man yurida bi khayrin faqah fi din. Allah will give you tawfiq. You have to have that ambition. But now we have all these things. The next step is you take what you learn and you do. Right? This is important because again, most of the time when we learn all of this, what happens? You're getting all pumped up and then, okay, and you're ready now. Let's go. Start step by step. You get the first kitab, you do the work, and the next one. As time passes, you'll find yourself growing. Inshallah, we'll end with this much. We'll move to the board over there, inshallah ta'ala, to do the next half. And anyone has any quick questions, actually? If anyone has any questions? Yeah. So the brother's asking, some people say that I had a bad day because I didn't remember Allah, or this calamity happened to me because of a sin. This is generally true. And Muslims, we believe that our dhunub, they impact us, are the mistakes we make, they impact us. But so it's not transactional in the sense that we know if I do bad, bad can come my way. So it's allowed. The Sahaba set up, you had that understanding. The key is like saying today's a bad day, a good day. It's permissible. If you're just describing the day, but you're not ascribing good or bad to the day. You're just saying today was a bad day because bad things happened. Right, that's different. So scholars say it's okay to say that. Like today's a black day, like a very dark day. That's okay. But let's say, for example, someone says like this happened to me because I'm sinning. This is okay. This is a asbab al-shar'i. It is. Why? Because when we say asbab or nu'an, asbab are two types. Hissi wa ma'nawi, or hissi wa shar'i. Tangible and intangible or legislative. So we know as Muslims, you don't fill the gas, your car is not going to work. You do sins, your car might not work either. Right? That's qadar Allah wa shafa'an. Yes, it's true. You don't say Bismillah, your car can falter. A Sahaba understood that. Umar was once riding on an animal and it tripped. And he said, Bismillah. Shaitan was riding with us. And he made us fall like this. It's true. See, they understood more advanced than us. Us, because we were in the secular side, we tend to be a little bit more materialistic, right? We always look at what's wrong, what's there. Maybe you're not remembering Allah. What are you doing in the car? And sometimes you notice, wallah, that these small things give you an indication Allah is watching over you all the time. So that's allowed as a Muslim, and that gives us the reminder, do the adhkar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rahim. Any other quick questions? Yes? So the ulama talk about that something, someone does something good to you and you say, you made my day. If the meaning is you made me happy or benefited me, it's something that's allowed. It goes back to the intent by the person. But obviously, if someone's saying that this particular action alone is going to be his success, so we always go back to the qa'idah. All the words people, they say, the itlaqat, the words people use, they go back to nafs al-murad of the mutakallim, the speaker's intention. And also the urf of the people. So we know when people say, maybe my day means maybe happy. They're not going to be like, my whole day is, mashallah, successful because you hold the door for me, or that's my tawfiq. No one really says that. No one means that. So we don't be so literal on that. We just say, okay, the person means it's a happy moment, and it's okay. So we always go back to intention by what people mean. Otherwise, if we don't have clear intention, we can hold the wording according to its customary usage. And this is the qa'idah fiqhi the ulama mentioned too. So it's important to always have that side. But that's why when in doubt, what's the job? Istifsal. Say to the person, what do you mean by that? Just in case. Whenever you get confused, always ask them, what do you mean? Because you never know what someone might be saying. That's a good way to avoid overstepping or maybe in gray areas. Sometimes we want to correct someone, just make sure he did something wrong. Sometimes you're correcting the guy didn't do wrong. That could also make us mistake, right? And make us look bad. So just ask, and usually you hold people for generally what they intend. And if it's not clear, then but some ulama say it's generally allowed because we know what he intends. We know what he intends. That's why. Mm. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Mm. Benefit or not. Yeah. So the brother's asking now things like the medical in community, things like wearing wool bandages or something where there's a dispute if it has benefit or not, or someone may think it has benefit or it doesn't. Therefore, the ulama always look to make tahqiq of the fa'idah if it's there. So who does that? If it's medical, the people of the field, Ahl al-Thiqah or the khubara of that field, the experts. Now, when it comes to deen shari, so we say shar'an muqaddara, the sharia allows us to use material means to benefit us physically. For example, this will help your bones straighten, this will. But let's say you have this opinion is weak scientifically. You see, then you say, okay, it's not benefiting you in the qadr side or the shari side. But sometimes people may have a different opinion, and if it's open for that, we're not going to say you're doing shirk. We'll just say, but we encourage the person to make sure that this is actually a reliable opinion. A lot of people, they do have superstitions. They say this works. You don't know who said it. No scholar said it. No doctor saying it. It's like his own thing. So we encourage people to look into the issue better. Make affirmation before you take it as a benefit. But we're not going to see someone doing shirk because he has a dhann, he has an opinion that has benefits. But what's dangerous though is that when someone knows that it's not in the sharia and it's weak in the science, then you're already in shaky grounds because they don't do it for other things, right? You don't do that for like your general life, but then for your health. So we have to tell, especially the older people, we have to explain. And when in doubt, we do research. So for example, good example brother mentioned now, let's take the example of that power band. People are wearing, athletes wear this band, you wear it. It's not for rheumatism. It's supposed to give you energy or something, you know. It's supposed to channel your energy and you're supposed to scoring, I don't know. Most people who wore it didn't score much anyway, so it probably is not working. So the people who are wearing it, saying it really makes me, mashallah, I play well. Science has shown absolutely it doesn't work. And the ulama mentioned this type of shirk then. Some ulama mentioned, as Sheikh Salih Hussein and others, that this is shirk. Now, because we've found scientifically this doesn't work. Qadran is now proven. You could say in the gray area, maybe someone, okay, inshallah, he was confused. But now when it's clear, you cannot say, I'm still wearing it. Because we say, look, you know it doesn't work. Another example would be some of the other bracelets there for rheumatism. Some of them, they work depending on what material they have, and some of them, and we know in science, it's called the placebo effect. You wear something, it's going in your head. You know, you could drink the ginger and inshallah, same thing could happen. So, but you have to wear this one, or then the lucky stuff, right? So we have to teach the people, Sharia Islamiyya is mashallah based on evidence. Science and experience or Sharia. That's our deen. Mm. Yeah, shocked, yeah. Yes. So yeah, it's real. Some of them works. Some of them, yeah. So that way, if it works scientifically, it's allowed. Because that benefit he's trying to get. Yeah, so that means just say if there's a khilaf between the science and research. But let's say there is an opinion amongst the scientists that works, then we say, yeah. He doesn't know that. Yes. So that's why whenever there's something like this, the dispute will come with the science community or the authority, and from them they're saying. Because we defer to them, they know better in this field. But if it's proven in the science community that some of them or many of them or they're different, it has some benefit for that benefit you're getting. So for example, I wear this, I can't get shocked. It maybe works, maybe it doesn't. That's where the debate is. But imagine someone wore the same one that he said, this is going to make me successful. So it has to be for what he's trying to get. And if it works, then it's allowed. If it doesn't work, we discourage it. And there's levels. We tell someone, go from that to that. And that's why always in Islam, we say, go to a reliable doctor. Don't ask me, ask the doctor. It's usually people ask the doctor, see what he says. And that's the best way to solve it, because some people, they're opinionated. We don't want to argue. Just say, just please make sure it's actually benefits. And that's why the bab is open to those levels. Well, everyone who does something, we don't want to condemn them with shirk. It's very hard. But there's a good point the brother is mentioning about this. Yes. So the brother's asking about someone taking someone's advice to do some medical treatment. I mean, it goes without saying, you always go to people who have experience. It's not good to take someone's advice is not rejected, but when it comes to speciality or authority, If you're going to rely upon doing benefit, you have to ensure the benefit's there. If the benefit's there, you can take that advice because that's how the tajriba works. Someone experiences, then they record it and they share it. But one of the biggest things that we don't want people to giving unsolicited medical advice, all right? That's why we have to always go to the doctor. I think most of us, we know better than that. Because what the Thomas said, that was shirk here. And so that's what I say, when we get to Kitab al-Tawheed, we'll look at it. But see, the qaida helps us to understand when is it, when is it not. Because if it benefits someone, it's a benefit. As long as you're trying to get that benefit from it. Allahu a'lam. But I would advise to always go to the doctors for these things. Okay? Yes. Manhaj methodology is connected to Aqidah, but it's not the same as Aqidah. Manhaj and Aqidah have a relationship of general and specific. You could say that Manhaj is more spacious than Aqidah. So Sahaba, for example, is part of the Manhaj. Belief in Sahaba, following them. That's Manhaj. But it's also from Aqidah in some ways. But Aqidah focuses more on the Arkan al-Iman, and Manhaj do with the Akhlaq wal-Adab. How do you deal with the rulers? How do you deal with the innovators? What is the innovation? So you could see that Manhaj is its own subject matter. But someone should be studying that too. And we'll talk about maybe later how do you study manhaj, because it's not allowed for a Muslim to want to believe what the Sahaba believe, but we don't follow what they followed. فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. If you believe the way they believed, means believe and do what they did, you'll be guided. So definitely it is a subject matter, but there's a slightly different than it. Okay, last one before we go there, yes? Okay, but good question. How do you retain? That's the next week, inshallah. We're going to talk about note taking next week. How do you retain the material? That's a very good question. So next week we'll do that. Some advice, some steps, and inshallah that will be good. So inshallah, let's now move to the board so we can do some work there, some review, inshallah, and I'm going to close this one.